Chapter 31. That ring. She has been wearing it all along. Xiaoji arrived at the door of Mr. Vol's study, intending to explain the situation to him. After all, her original intention had simply been to give her friend a magical item as a gift. However, he had no idea that house elves were notoriously poor at relaying messages. They tended to mangle them beyond recognition. As a result, the elves had inadvertently confirmed that Xiaoji was proposing to Cassandra. Right now, Mrs. Vol was storming back home, while Mr. Vol had taken out a fine vintage wine he'd treasured for years to drown his sorrows. Standing at the entrance to his study, Xiaoji's face was flushed bright red. He clearly wanted to enter, but dared not. The system, meanwhile, was cackling like a pig on the side.
Ding.
No wonder the host remained single for 30 years in his past life. That's enough.
Ding.
A new quest has been issued. Please resolve this misunderstanding without lowering the Vol family's favorability toward you. Reward: 1 random treasure chest. Items or skills obtained from this chest are not limited to this world. Will the host accept this quest? The system was causing more trouble than ever. I accept. To everyone's surprise, Xiaoji accepted instantly, a sly, triumphant smile curling at his lips.
Ding.
Accepted instantly? Could it be that all your awkwardness was merely an act? I was just waiting for you to issue this quest. Xiaoji's smile turned confident. I could have resolved this easily on my own, but there'd be no reward for doing so. So I played up the embarrassment. In truth, I've figured you out by now. Whenever something amuses you, you tend to suddenly issue a quest to tempt me into doing something I'd rather avoid. And the rewards are always quite generous.
Ding.
True enough. I hadn't planned to issue any quest this time. It was purely to watch you squirm. Humph, you actually anticipated this. Still, don't get too smug. Let's see how well you handle the actual resolution. This is hardly difficult. Trust me, if I walk in now and explain everything to Mr. Vol, this misunderstanding will vanish instantly.
Ding.
Makes sense. I've been tricked again. However, doing that would make Cassandra furious at me. So this isn't the optimal approach. The best solution is for me to remain completely clueless. Xiaoji chuckled softly, turned around, and strolled off. After picking up 2 smooth river stones from the ground, he headed straight toward the Vol family's library. Access to the library had long since been granted to Xiaoji. He could enter at any time to read.
Ding.
What are you planning to do, host? Read a book. When Mrs. Vol returned home, she nearly exploded with rage upon seeing Mr. Vol drowning his sorrows in alcohol. She grabbed his ear and yanked hard. What on earth is going on with our daughter? I heard you actually shed tears of joy over this. Mr. Vol put on a mournful expression.
Joy?
Oh, Merlin's beard. I've never been this heartbroken in my entire life. I went to ask her just now, but she insisted this had nothing to do with me and told me to leave her alone. Oh, Alina, I fear our daughter has grown weary of this household. That's why she's so eager to get married. How exactly did you ask her? Mr. Vol recounted the entire exchange, only to be promptly scolded by his wife. With questions like that, even I'd have told you to back off. Cassandra's still a young girl. Of course she'd be shy when faced with such matters. You barged in asking so bluntly. Of course she wouldn't want to see you. Mrs. Vol then approached Cassandra's bedroom door. Mr. Vol trailed behind her, staying silent. Cassandra, it's Mama. May I come in? Mama? Cassandra sounded flustered, yet moments later, she opened the door. My little lady, what are you doing hiding in your room in broad daylight? Nothing much. I suddenly felt unwell, so I rested a bit. Cassandra's eyes darted nervously about. Oh, I heard she gave you a lovely little gift. May I take a peek at it?
Mrs. Vol inquired.
Perhaps because she'd made no mention whatsoever of proposals or engagement rings, Cassandra gradually calmed down. After a moment's hesitation, she removed the ring still adorning her right ring finger. The instant her finger touched it, Cassandra's name shimmered into view on the ring's surface. Mr. Vol watched on, heart sinking. She must have agreed to it. Otherwise, she wouldn't still be wearing it, and the ring only displays one's name upon contact. This is unmistakably a wedding ring. His own wedding band and his wife's bore the same magical trait. Mrs. Vole took the ring into her hands and examined it closely. As long as she held it, Cassandra's name ceased to appear, as though the ring had already acknowledged Cassandra's magical signature. What a beautiful ring, Mrs. Vole marveled. Cassandra stood nearby, eyes glued to the ring, clearly fearing her mother might refuse to return it. Cassandra, I imagine you understand what it signifies when a boy gives a girl a ring, and what it means when a girl allows him to place it upon her finger. Just as Cassandra began to relax, Mrs. Vole dropped this bombshell. Cassandra's face instantly flushed crimson. What does it mean? I don't get it. I have no idea. This is merely a simple gift. No matter what you say, I refuse to admit anything. This ring appears to be handcrafted. Xiaji must have put considerable effort into it. Let's go thank him together. Mrs. Vole leaned close to Cassandra's flushed face. Cassandra's face burned scarlet, eyes darting everywhere. Must I meet that rascal now? Good heavens, is there no way to avoid it? Cassandra, what's wrong? Are you perhaps afraid of seeing Xiaji? I'm not afraid at all. I'll go if I must. Chapter 32. You actually hope this is a proposal ring, right? Inside the library, Xiaji pretended to be engrossed in reading a very thick magical tome. He maintained this posture until the Vole family of 3 approached him. Since his crisis awareness talent hadn't triggered, he figured this was a safe situation, perfect for conversation. As if just realizing their presence, Xiaji raised his head. Upon seeing the family standing before him, he promptly stood up. Mr. Vole, I truly appreciate you generously allowing me access to your library. The collection here is absolutely magnificent. Oh, it's nothing, Mr. Vole murmured politely, his gaze involuntarily drifting toward his wife. Mrs. Vole stepped forward, holding Cassandra's ring in hand, ready to ask whether Xiaji intended to propose by giving her the ring. Before she could speak, Xiaji beat her to it. Yes, I nearly forgot. Xiaji reached into his pocket and pulled out another exquisitely crafted ring, handing it to Mrs. Vole. I'm endlessly grateful for all your kindness toward me. I've never experienced such warmth in my life. So, I crafted a few gifts as a token of my appreciation. They may not be of great value, but they carry my sincere heart. This unexpected gesture left all 3 members of the Vole family utterly stunned. Mrs. Vole hesitated. Is this meant for me? Indeed. Xiaji gazed at her with utter sincerity and innocence. Had Xiaji been just 4 or 5 years older, Mr. Vole would have immediately rushed over and tossed him out of the estate. What in the world? Was this lad even eyeing his own mother-in-law? How dare he offer a ring to his future mother-in-law, right in front of his future father-in-law? Then, Xiaji pulled out yet another delicate ring and handed it to Mr. Vole. This one's for you. Thanks to your generosity in letting me use the library, I discovered a fascinating spell within this book, the undetectable extension charm. Seeing the 3 of them frozen in awe, Xiaji picked up the ring Mr. Vole hadn't accepted and gently brushed it against the thick book before him. Instantly, the book vanished from the desk. Merlin's beard. You actually managed to cast the undetectable extension charm onto a ring. And you only just learned this spell? Mr. Vole was utterly astounded. Numerous wizards had attempted to cast this charm onto small trinkets, but most failed. Even when successful, they only managed to create a tiny pocket of space, barely large enough to hold a pocket watch. Yet Xiaji's ring had effortlessly stored an entire book. Mr. Vole took the ring and examined it closely, eventually noticing a tiny hidden hole within it. He probed it carefully with his magic. Gorgon's Gallop. This space could easily hold an entire fireplace. Mrs. Vole leaned toward Xiaji and asked, So, all 3 rings have been modified using the undetectable extension charm? Xiaji instinctively took a step back. Mrs. Vole bore a striking resemblance to Cassandra, basically an enlarged version of her, exuding a regal, commanding aura. Having her so close was downright intimidating. Xiaji quickly nodded.
Yes.
Today, I gave Cassandra her ring, but I hadn't yet explained that it's a storage ring. Then she ran off. At this point, Cassandra reacted most intensely. She exclaimed indignantly, "So, you gave me a ring not because you intended to." Intend to what? Instantly, Cassandra's face flushed red once more. Mrs. Vole's emerald green eyes locked onto Xiaoji's. "So, you have no idea what it signifies when a boy gives a girl a ring?" Xiaoji acted like a bewildered child who'd no idea what he'd done wrong, looking utterly terrified. He swallowed hard and asked, "What does it signify?" "It means he's proposing to her." "Proposing? Good heavens." Xiaoji's face turned crimson. I've lost so much memory. I see no record of this in my recollections. So, how is this possible? I'm still just a child. So it was all a misunderstanding. Mr. Vole's mood instantly brightened. Thank goodness his precious daughter wouldn't be leaving his side so soon.
Ahem.
Thank you very much for your gifts, Xiaoji. But remember this well, never casually give rings to girls. Mrs. Vole also appeared somewhat flustered. Indeed, Xiaoji was still just a child. How could they have assumed such a young lad understood the concept of proposing? "Coffee," Mrs. Vole called out. Instantly, the house elf Coffee appeared before her. It was Coffee's fault. "Please punish Coffee severely, mistress." Coffee's ears drooped, her expression filled with sorrow. Was this truly just a misunderstanding? Oh, yet Xiaoji and Cassandra seemed so perfectly matched. Xiaoji spoke up. "Mrs. Vole, this is entirely my fault. I placed the ring on Cassandra myself. My utter lack of awareness led Coffee to believe I was proposing. She's such a devoted guardian to her young mistress, so she joyfully rushed to inform you both. I humbly beg you to forgive her." "Very well, if that's what you say." Mrs. Vole relented. "Oh, Master Xiaoji is pleading for Coffee. Master Xiaoji is truly noble." Wah! Coffee burst into tearful gratitude. Xiaoji quickly halted her. "Enough now. Stop crying. Could you brew me some tea?" "Of course. Coffee shall prepare it at once." At that moment, Cassandra abruptly turned and dashed off. Xiaoji immediately gave chase. Mrs. Vole spoke anxiously. "This is my fault. I shouldn't have brought Cassandra here. Now she's likely upset with Xiaoji. Such trivial squabbles are nothing between youths. They'll reconcile in no time." Mr. Vole, elated that his daughter wouldn't be leaving him so soon, was now gleefully examining the ring Xiaoji had gifted him. "Cassandra, where are you going?" Xiaoji swiftly caught up and grabbed her arm. Cassandra's eyes glistened with tears. Struggling futilely, she coldly declared, "I'm feeling unwell. I need to rest. Let go of me." Of course, this was all just a misunderstanding. There was no way he'd be proposing to me. This was purely my own delusion. He's such a blockhead, a stiff, clueless blockhead. Her heart overflowed with disappointment, shame, and frustration. She was actually angry at herself. She knew this wasn't truly Xiaoji's fault. Having lost so much memory, he simply lacked this basic knowledge. How could he be blamed? Trapped by his grip, Cassandra helplessly gazed at him. Xiaoji took her right hand and spoke. "You forgot this." He held the ring and gently slipped it back onto Cassandra's ring finger. Huh! Cassandra stood frozen. This time, Xiaoji fully understood the significance. Her heart pounded wildly. Xiaoji smiled softly, leaned close to her ear and whispered, "So, deep down, you truly wished this was a wedding ring, didn't you?"
Ah.
You rascal. Chapter 33. Heading to Diagon Alley. I definitely don't hope this is a proposal ring. I like you not at all. Cassandra ran off, her face flushed with embarrassment. Actually, I know she likes me, Xiaoji said, a hint of melancholy in his voice.
Ding.
Astounding. The host finally gets it, no longer a complete blockhead. My heart is soaring with joy. No, it's just that later on, I realized Cassandra clearly misunderstood my intentions at the time, yet she didn't refuse when I put the ring on her. That's why I boldly concluded she liked me. Xiaoji chuckled bitterly and shook his head. Before that, I had no idea how she felt. So this is what liking someone feels like. But why do they say they don't like you even when they clearly do? Did you hear what she just said? That she likes me not at all? In the past, I would have believed that. Now that I think about it, did I miss out on so much in my past life? Xiaoji suddenly fell into deep contemplation.
Ding.
In your past life, you deserve to be single for 30 years.
Ding.
Congratulations on completing the mission. You've earned a random treasure chest. Would you like to open it? Open it. Only now did Xiaoji remember there was a chest waiting for him.
Ding.
Chest opened successfully. Congratulations, host, on obtaining Hound Step +1.
Ding.
The system has detected that this skill originates from another world and has now fully assimilated it into this world's magic. On Xiaoji's interface, under the spells section, a new entry appeared. Hound Step. With a mere thought, Xiaoji's figure vanished from where he stood and reappeared 3 meters away on the ground. This was actually a teleportation spell. It allowed instantaneous movement within a 10-meter radius. He recalled, this was a combat skill from a video game called Elden Ring in his past life. Originally, it could only be equipped on weapons, enabling short-distance teleportation in various directions. Now, however, Hound Step had been fully integrated into this world's magic system, becoming a spell anyone could learn. Xiaoji nodded in delight. Unlike Apparition, this spell only allowed short-range teleportation, but it activated far more quickly and carried no risk of bodily disintegration. If he mastered it, he could become a ghostly figure constantly appearing behind his enemies during battle. Most importantly, this spell could be taught to other wizards. With it, those he cared about would gain far greater protection. From that day onward, Cassandra avoided Xiaoji for several days straight. Thankfully, she possessed great emotional resilience, and Xiaoji had thick skin to spare. Within days, they reverted to their usual rapport. If anything, they grew even closer. Xiaoji spent nearly half a month recuperating at Cassandra's estate, fully regaining his strength. During that time, he absorbed countless new magical insights from the Vol family's library. By late July, the moment finally came. Xiaoji bid farewell to Cassandra's family, preparing to leave their estate. Can't you stay? Though her expression remained neutral, Cassandra's eyes betrayed her true feelings. I can't keep living at your place, Cassandra, Xiaoji replied with a smile. After all, he was merely a guest at her estate. There was no reason to overstay his welcome. He wasn't some live-in son-in-law. Well, there's no real reason why not, Cassandra murmured softly. Mr. Vol smiled warmly. You're always welcome here, and I believe Cassandra feels the same. Humph. I couldn't care less about that jerk. Mrs. Vol gently stroked Cassandra's head before addressing Xiaoji. I've asked Coffee to escort you to Diagon Alley. By now, you must have learned quite a bit about it. Thank you. That's incredibly helpful. Xiaoji bowed politely in gratitude. Cassandra, don't be like that. Professor Dumbledore once said partings are meant to make reunions sweeter. We'll meet again at Hogwarts, won't we? Cassandra stayed silent, her left hand unconsciously caressing the ring on her right. Xiaoji waved at them, then took Coffee's hand. With a crisp pop, both vanished from sight. Humph! You jerk! If you don't write to me, you're in big trouble. Pop. Coffee and Xiaoji reappeared outside a shop in Diagon Alley. Xiaoji noticed that teleportation via house elf was far more comfortable than human apparition. Perhaps this was just an illusion caused by some side effect of his earlier prophecy. Mr. Xiaoji, Coffee will leave you here. Please take care of yourself. Coffee will miss you dearly. I'll miss you too, Coffee. Farewell. Tell Cassandra I won't forget to write to her. Only after Coffee departed did Xiaoji begin exploring Diagon Alley. It closely resembled the cinematic depictions he remembered, only this version featured wider streets and even more shops. One thing remained unchanged. It was packed with people, right? First things first, Gringotts. He pulled out a map, checked his bearings, and headed toward Gringotts, a map Cassandra had drawn just for him. With it, He had no fear of getting lost. Moments later, brimming with anticipation, Xiaji stepped inside Gringotts. Inside his ring, gold bars were piled up high. Chapter 34. Nice. It's the movie version of Hermione. Before long, Xiaji, surrounded by a crowd of exceedingly polite goblins, stepped out through the grand doors of Gringotts. There was no helping it. Xiaji was simply incredibly wealthy. When he began taking out those gold galleons one by one, the goblin receiving him nearly fainted from sheer joy. By the time Xiaji left Gringotts, his ring had already been filled with more than enough gold galleons. He then took out the acceptance letter left for him by Professor Dumbledore, which included a detailed list of books and supplies required for school. After giving it a quick glance, Xiaji decided his first purchase would be an owl. Without an owl, there'd be no way to send letters to Cassandra Vole. Moreover, he felt it would be best to send her a letter right after acquiring an owl. There are times when one must trust the intuition of a prophet. Following the directions on the map, Xiaji stopped in front of a rather dimly lit shop. Soft, muffled hooting sounds drifted out from within. The sign above the door read, Yila Owl Shop. Xiaji strode inside. The interior was dark, lined with numerous cages containing all sorts of owls, tawny owls, barn owls, snowy owls, and more. They varied greatly in size and temperament. The moment he entered, he felt as though countless pairs of eyes were fixed on him. It seemed the owls inside were carefully observing him. Xiaji was certain these creatures possessed considerable intelligence. Their gazes gave the impression they were selecting their own master. A young shop assistant eagerly approached him. Hello. Are you looking to buy an owl or owl food? Hello. I'd like to buy an owl, and naturally some owl food as well. The assistant began introducing various owls to Xiaji, some massive and powerful, others delicate and petite. Some carried themselves with pride, while others seemed lively and playful. After scanning the lot, Xiaji's eyes landed on one particularly energetic little creature. It was a snowy owl, though far smaller than most of its kind. At first glance, it resembled a snowball. That one's the one. Ultimately, after paying 20 gold galleons, Xiaji took possession of this little snowy owl. It was pricey, but right now, money was the least of his worries. From now on, you'll be called Snowball, Xiaji said with a smile. Inside its cage, Snowball hopped about excitedly, clearly eager to take flight. Xiaji carried the cage outside, then produced a piece of parchment and gently tapped it with his wand. Lines of text appeared on the parchment, only to vanish moments later. This was a small spell he and Cassandra had developed together. Letters written using this magic appeared blank to anyone else unless they cast a specific spell to reveal the ink. Truthfully, Xiaji preferred not to resort to such secrecy, but Cassandra always insisted on staying cautious around Mrs. Vole. He wrote at length until the parchment was filled, then folded it, placed it in Snowball's beak, and released the owl into the air. It was truly remarkable. The owl seemed to know exactly who it was meant to deliver the letter to, even without being told. Xiaji stored the empty cage back into his ring, then consulted the list again, deciding where to head next. Xiaji? Excuse me, are you Mr. Xiaji? Suddenly hearing his name, Xiaji turned to see a tall witch clad in emerald robes smiling warmly at him. Behind her stood a muggle-dressed couple and a girl with a wild tangle of hair. Wow, all familiar faces. Yet currently, Xiaji wasn't supposed to recognize them. Yes, that's me. May I ask who you are? Xiaji politely inquired. Hello, Xiaji. I'm Minerva McGonagall, the Transfiguration Professor at Hogwarts. Professor Dumbledore has spoken highly of you. He's praised your talent in Transfiguration endlessly. Frankly, it's been ages since I've heard him speak so glowingly of a young wizard. Professor McGonagall gazed at Xiaji with a smile. Blushing slightly, Xiaji replied modestly, Professor Dumbledore is too kind. He told me you're the finest transfiguration master around, and I'm eager to learn from you at Hogwarts. Indeed, Professor Dumbledore had mentioned that this year, a young wizard possessing extraordinary transfiguration talent would be enrolling. Dumbledore had also noted that Xiaoji exuded a unique charm, making him instantly recognizable in a crowd. Initially, McGonagall doubted this, but just moments ago, upon arriving in Diagon Alley with the Granger family, she spotted a tall boy frowning over a list. That distinct aura made him stand out even amidst the throng. Thus, she guessed he was Xiaoji and approached to confirm. Her guess proved correct. "Professor McGonagall, where are you headed now?" "I'm guiding Miss Granger and her parents through Diagon Alley to purchase supplies. This is Hermione Granger. She'll be your classmate this year." Professor McGonagall introduced the Grangers and their daughter to Xiaoji. Xiaoji shook their hands one by one. It was the movie version of Hermione. Yet, outwardly, he remained composed. "I'm planning to take them to Gringotts next to exchange Muggle currency for gold galleons." Professor McGonagall prepared to bid farewell, intent on continuing her duties. Exchanging Muggle currency? Xiaoji fell deep in thought. "To my knowledge, Gringotts imposes strict limits on Muggle to galleon conversions. You rarely get much value. How about this? I just left Gringotts myself and happen to need Muggle currency too. Mr. Granger, would you consent to exchange with me instead? I've got no such limits." Xiaoji indeed planned to shop in the Muggle world later. He'd definitely need British pounds. Rather than letting the goblins profit, he preferred trading with Mr. Granger. With Professor McGonagall present, the Grangers felt assured Xiaoji wouldn't deceive them. "Absolutely. How much wizardly currency can you exchange?" Mr. Granger asked, though he hardly expected much from a boy of Xiaoji's age. Xiaoji smiled. "How many pounds have you brought?" "Roughly 1,000. Mr. Granger pulled out a stack of bills and counted them. "Perfect. I'll take them all. Here are 200 gold galleons." Xiaoji promptly produced a pouch. The exchange rate was roughly 1 gold galleon to 5 pounds. This pouch, crafted by Gringotts itself, bore an undetectable extension charm. It could hold an astonishing quantity of galleons. "Oh, dear child, may I ask where on earth you obtained so much money?" Professor McGonagall couldn't resist asking. 200 galleons was no small sum, far beyond what a youth like Xiaoji should possess. "Actually, I own a pet creature known to Professor Dumbledore as well. 1 ounce of its venom sells for 500 gold galleons." This time, Xiaoji spoke truthfully. He'd indeed consulted Mrs. Vole regarding the price of Nagini's venom. After professional appraisal, that valuation held true. Thus, even without the Philosopher's Stone, Xiaoji faced no shortage of gold galleons, hence his unabashed affluence. After all, he had enough venom from Nagini to fill entire buckets. Chapter 35. Shocking transfiguration skills that stun Professor McGonagall. Xiaoji was getting ready to bid farewell to Professor McGonagall and the others. He had already decided where his next destination would be. Right now, Xiaoji wanted to purchase a wand that truly belonged to him. The wand he currently possessed had been taken from a werewolf wizard. Though it now obeyed him, he simply preferred to get a new one. After all, he had the means to do so. Upon hearing his plans, Professor McGonagall chuckled. In fact, Mr. Granger now possesses enough galleons to no longer need to visit Gringotts. And we also happen to be here to buy a new wand for Miss Granger. In that case, let's go together. It'd be a great chance to discuss transfiguration with you, Xiaoji replied nonchalantly. After spending nearly half a month studying in the Vole family's library, Xiaoji's proficiency in transfiguration had now reached level 5. This achievement was entirely his own doing. He hadn't spent any skill points from the system on it. It was no surprise. With his intelligence stat at 10, he absorbed knowledge with ease, almost as if he had cheat-like abilities. Along the way, Xiaoji and Professor McGonagall continued discussing transfiguration. Though Hermione Granger remained mostly silent, she paid close attention to this boy around her age. He seemed incredibly well-versed in the wizarding world. Perhaps he hailed from some prestigious wizard family. As Xiaoji and the professor talked about Gamp's basic law of transfiguration and its 5 exceptions, Hermione listened in confusion, utterly clueless as to what they were discussing. For someone like her, who had always excelled academically, This was truly astonishing. She resolved right then to memorize every single textbook she acquired. She wanted to be able to engage in such lively discussions with Professor McGonagall, too. A competitive spirit immediately flared within her. It seems you've learned quite a bit during your time recuperating at the Vole residence. I doubt I have much more to teach you now, Professor McGonagall remarked in awe. She had never encountered a young wizard of his age capable of discussing transfiguration at such a profound level. Professor McGonagall, you're too kind. I'm blushing now, Xiaji replied modestly. Finally, they arrived at Ollivander's wand shop. The storefront appeared small and shabby, with peeling gold lettering on the door that read, Ollivander's, makers of fine wands since 382 BC. Xiaji figured that had Diagon Alley contained any other wand shops, this one would have long since closed down. Still, perhaps Ollivander kept the worn signage to emphasize his centuries-long tradition of wand-making. Jingle. Xiaji pushed open the door and gestured for Professor McGonagall and the others to enter. The shop interior was cramped. Once all 5 of them stepped inside, it seemed even tighter. Settling onto a bench, Xiaji began scanning the thousands of wand boxes lining the shelves. Good news. Even through those boxes, he could still see each wand's attribute panel. He swiftly browsed through them, hoping to find one with a 100% compatibility rating. Good afternoon. A soft voice suddenly rang out, startling the Grangers, who had been looking around. Oh, Professor McGonagall. Long time no see. Spruce wood, 9.5 inches. Dragon heartstring, unyielding. An excellent wand for transfiguration. Wouldn't you agree? An elderly man materialized behind the counter, his pale eyes studying Hermione and Xiaji. That must be Ollivander. Indeed, it's been ages. Today, I've brought my students here to purchase wands. Ah, so these 2 young wizards are the buyers. Ollivander's gaze shifted between Xiaji and Hermione. Who would like to go first? Ladies first, Xiaji replied. He was still on the hunt for a wand with even higher compatibility. He couldn't be certain whether Ollivander's selection would surpass his current one. The Werewolf Wizard's wand already boasted a 91% compatibility rating, which was quite impressive. But since he was buying a new one, he wanted one that fit him perfectly. Meanwhile, Ollivander summoned an automatic measuring tape to take Hermione's measurements. After several trials, she finally received her wand. Grapevine wood, 10.25 inches long, with a highly flexible dragon heartstring core, exactly as described in the original story. Now, it's this gentleman's turn. Xiaji stood and approached the counter. Which hand do you prefer to use? My right. The tape reappeared, and Xiaji guessed to help narrow down the search range. Otherwise, finding a suitable wand among thousands would have been nearly impossible. Here, please try this one. Ollivander handed him a reddish-brown wand. Xiaji glanced down, and its panel appeared instantly. Item, wand, wood, sycamore, core, dragon heartstring, length, 13.25 inches, elasticity, highly elastic, condition good, compatibility, 92%, dark magic affinity, 90%. This wand suited him well too. With a mere flick, flocks of chirping birds materialized above them before gradually fading away.
Oh.
This wand matches you splendidly, sir. Mr. Ollivander, may I try a few others as well? My dear sir, it's the wand that chooses the wizard, not the other way around. Still, if you insist, I'll fetch some other options based on your measurements. Apologies, but could you retrieve the 3rd box from the top of the 3rd row on the far left shelf? The 1/3 down from the top. Xiaji politely requested. Ollivander seemed slightly displeased, yet Xiaji's innate charm made it hard to refuse him. Very well, very well. Though I doubt that one will suit you better, I'll bring it out. I simply failed to grasp why you'd choose it. Moments later, Ollivander returned with the requested wand. Opening the box, he handed Xiaji a wand resembling polished obsidian. Its panel appeared once more. Item, wand, wood, ebony, core, dragon heartstring, length, 12.75 inches, elasticity, extremely rigid, condition good, Compatibility 100%. Dark magic affinity 99%. The moment Xiaoji grasped this heavy wand, he sensed an immediate connection. If his previous wand had been like a master-servant bond, this one felt like a true companion. It fit perfectly, as naturally as his own arm. With a swift wave, the box atop Ollivander's desk twisted into a magnificent phoenix. Singing sweetly, it circled above them before settling back down, its bright eyes curiously observing everyone present. The entire room fell silent in awe. Ollivander covered his mouth. Good heavens! I've never seen a wand with such perfect compatibility. Was it calling to you all along? Professor McGonagall was equally stunned. Such exquisite transfiguration. Even its eyes seemed so lifelike. Could an 11-year-old wizard truly achieve this? Chapter 36. It seems I truly have no talent for transfiguration. Creating a phoenix was well within Professor McGonagall's capabilities as well. In fact, hers would likely be even more lifelike than the one Xiaoji conjured. Yet Xiaoji was only 11 years old this year and hadn't even officially enrolled at Hogwarts yet. In just the past 2 weeks of studying under the Vole family, he had already achieved more than most adult wizards managed in decades. It was truly astonishing. For a moment, Professor McGonagall even entertained the absurd notion that Xiaoji might be a reincarnation of Merlin. Xiaoji gazed at the phoenix before him, but wasn't entirely satisfied. It's a pity. I've never seen a real phoenix. I've only seen drawings of them in Cassandra Vole's books. The illustrations depicted phoenixes quite differently from Fawkes in the movies. They appeared far more beautiful. As such, Xiaoji couldn't be entirely certain what a real phoenix looked like. Of course, the phoenix here referred to the version described in this world's lore, not the phoenixes from Eastern mythology in his past life. Bringing those into play would be downright unfair. This is already an incredible feat. Professor McGonagall exclaimed excitedly. You've never seen a real phoenix, yet you managed to conjure one so lifelike based solely on illustrations and imagination. Even among adult wizards, I've rarely seen anyone pull this off. Merlin above, just look at those expressive eyes. Those are Snowball's eyes. When I first saw her, I was captivated by her gaze, so I used it as a reference when conjuring this phoenix. You may not know this, but Dumbledore himself owns a phoenix named Fawkes. If you'd like to see it, I'm certain he wouldn't refuse. Really? Xiaoji and Professor McGonagall then proceeded to discuss various aspects of transfiguration at length. The Grangers also stepped forward, curiously observing the phoenix. Hermione was utterly awestruck. Earlier, while listening to Xiaoji and Professor McGonagall discuss transfiguration, she hadn't fully grasped its true depth. She'd even suspected Xiaoji was merely talking theory. But now, witnessing how he'd effortlessly transform a simple box into such a vivid phoenix, the sheer magic of it, combined with his unparalleled skill, left this usually proud girl utterly humbled. She found herself admiring Xiaoji immensely. Could I ever reach such heights? Ollivander chuckled. I've seen Fawkes. This phoenix of yours is far more beautiful. And this wand suits you perfectly. Clearly, wands truly do choose their wizards, doesn't it? Xiaoji nodded in agreement, though in truth, he'd simply selected it via his system interface. Snap! The wandering phoenix abruptly twisted back into the small box meant to hold a wand. Xiaoji sighed. Its duration is too short. Seems I truly lack any talent for transfiguration. Professor McGonagall nearly choked on his understated boasting. Xiaoji, you're only 11. Your achievements already surpass those of most wizards. If this is what you call lacking talent, then even Dumbledore would feel utterly ashamed. The group eventually left the wand shop. Since they were all purchasing school supplies, Xiaoji decided to tag along. Under Professor McGonagall's guidance, his shopping progressed rapidly. Mr. Granger hadn't exchanged any galleons at Gringotts yet, so funds remained plentiful. Hermione thus bought herself an owl. Xiaoji recalled that Hermione hadn't bought an owl in the original story. His small actions were already altering events. He resolved to stay cautious. never over-relying on his knowledge of the plot. True reliance must always lie in his own predictive abilities. Walking together, the group was lively. Unexpectedly, Xiaoji found himself enjoying such camaraderie. Deep down, he remained someone who feared solitude. After acquiring everything on his list, Xiaoji bid farewell to Professor McGonagall and the others. "My child, now that you've left the Vole estate, where do you plan to stay?" "I'll be staying at the Leaky Cauldron for a while. School starts in just over a month." Xiaoji smiled. "Rest assured, I've no shortage of galleons." Professor McGonagall nodded helplessly. She knew Xiaoji was an orphan, yet living in an inn wasn't a sustainable solution. He needed a proper home. Spending time with him, she grew ever fond. He was intelligent, polite, and kind-hearted. Most importantly, he possessed immense courage. She'd heard from Dumbledore about Xiaoji's ordeal in Albania. Barely escaping death, he'd still charged at those dark wizards with his wand in hand. Pure Gryffindor material. The thought of Gryffindor welcoming such a gifted young wizard this year filled her with joy. After seeing off Professor McGonagall, Xiaoji said his goodbyes to the Grangers. Half a day together had made them quite close. No one could resist Xiaoji's charm. He effortlessly earned goodwill from anyone he met. "Hermione, if you ever have questions, feel free to ask me via owl." Had anyone else said this, Hermione might have bristled. Yet Xiaoji had just displayed magical talent that even Professor McGonagall praised. She obediently nodded, clutching a small suitcase imbued with the undetectable extension charm. She silently vowed to memorize every textbook and spellbook inside it. Chapter 37. Do you truly trust him, Dumbledore? So, it seems that boy has gained quite a lot from exploring the Vole family's library. Dumbledore sat comfortably in his chair, his eyes gleaming with intelligence. Opposite him sat Professor McGonagall. "With all due respect, Albus, even in your youth, you never displayed such terrifying talent. To be precise, it far exceeds anything I ever achieved," Dumbledore corrected gently. "That's precisely why we must ensure he doesn't go astray." "Indeed. The things he's endured, by Merlin, they're heartbreaking. If he'd come to my house, I would have nurtured him with all my might." McGonagall gazed intently at Dumbledore. "My dear Professor, you know full well that the Sorting Hat makes those decisions. We have no right to interfere." "Of course, yet I firmly believe he belongs in Gryffindor." McGonagall spoke with absolute conviction. "It appears this boy has already reached a stage where he can stand on his own," Dumbledore remarked, nodding. He grabbed a scroll and swiftly began writing with a quill. "How about we ask him to retrieve that item for me? Oh, and Harry, he still hasn't received his letter. He needs friends his own age. Originally, I'd intended for Hagrid to handle this." "Dumbledore, Xiaoji is merely 11 years old. Are you certain he's capable of completing such a task?" McGonagall appeared quite anxious. "Why not? In fact, I believe he's fully up to the challenge. You've witnessed his abilities yourself, haven't you?" "Very well, though you're always right, of course." McGonagall still seemed somewhat indignant. After McGonagall left, Dumbledore continued pondering over the scroll. Time passed silently until he suddenly smiled, folded the scroll, and handed it to Fawkes the Phoenix. "Deliver this letter to him. He's been longing to meet you." Fawkes took the letter in its beak. A flash of flame ensued, and it vanished from sight. Dumbledore turned around cheerfully. "Severus, you're here? Care for some honeyed mead and lemon drops?" "So, you still intend to let that boy enroll normally?" Snape's expression remained grim. "Of course. Why wouldn't I? You're growing senile, Dumbledore. Do you realize how many people that boy killed using the Avada Kedavra curse in Albania? Are you planning to raise another Dark Lord?" Snape spoke coldly. "On the contrary, if left unattended, he'd be far more likely to go astray. Then lock him up in Azkaban. He used the killing curse. That's an undeniable fact. Severus, Xiaoji is a victim. At the time, he didn't even know what the Avada Kedavra curse was. We can't punish a victim for defending themselves against their oppressor." Dumbledore spoke calmly. "Look at those children he saved. I was present in Albania and witnessed firsthand the horrors they'd endured. Snape fell silent for a moment. I'll keep watch over him. Should he betray even a hint of treachery, I'll show no mercy. And I warn you, Dumbledore, don't place too much trust in this boy. In fact, just moments ago, I decided to have him retrieve that item and also introduce him to Harry. Dumbledore folded his hands atop his desk, gazing serenely at Snape. What? Snape's face turned pale. Dumbledore, how dare you? How can you so easily trust him, a talented young wizard who lost his memory after being abducted to Albania? Don't forget why you went to Albania in the first place. I remember perfectly, Severus. It was precisely because I sensed that person's presence there that I traveled there. Snape slammed his hands onto Dumbledore's desk, shouting vehemently. Then you must realize this boy is utterly ruthless. He very well could be Voldemort's newest servant. Or worse, he might actually be Voldemort himself. Perhaps he used some obscure method we're unaware of to be reborn as someone else. Have you ever encountered a young wizard with such terrifying talent? And he hails from Wool's Orphanage, the very place where Voldemort grew up. Doesn't that give you pause? He cannot be Voldemort. Voldemort would never act to save others. What if this is merely a ploy to earn your trust? It's exactly the sort of thing he excelled at in his youth. Snape panted heavily, then spoke gravely. If he truly is the Dark Lord, you're essentially handing him both that item and Harry. And you promised me Harry would remain unharmed. I trust Xiaji. I know what sort of person Voldemort is, and what his Death Eaters are capable of. Dumbledore remained unshaken. Do you truly trust him, Dumbledore? You're using that item as a test, aren't you? I know you too well. But whatever your motives, you mustn't involve Harry. What if you lose this gamble? Since when have you cared so much about Harry? Snape fell silent, breath caught. After a dreadful pause, he murmured, You know, it's for her. For Lily. Chapter 38. He still ended up doubting me. Xiaji rented a room at the Leaky Cauldron as his temporary residence. After seeing the Granger family off, Xiaji made another trip to the Muggle world and bought a whole bunch of items. There were pots, pans, seasonings, and plenty of food ingredients, and, of course, provisions for Nagini as well. Time within the Ring of Kings remained static, a property that perfectly ensured the food stayed fresh. Xiaji purchased an enormous amount of meat and stuffed it all into a large bag enchanted with the undetectable extension charm, which he then stored back into the Ring of Kings. Upon testing, he found that even though the meat was packed inside a bag with that charm, it still remained fresh within the ring. Of course, any space meant to hold living creatures, like Newt Scamander's suitcase, couldn't be placed inside the ring unless all the magical beasts inside were removed first. The reason Xiaji bought so much food was simple. He'd grown thoroughly fed up with what passed for cuisine in Britain. In his past life, he'd been quite skilled at cooking, and he had rather refined tastes. Having endured this for so long, he'd finally reached his limit. He proceeded to cook hot pot right there in his room. True, there weren't many suitable seasonings available in Britain, but they'd suffice. Thus, Xiaji ate with great relish. He felt that Hufflepuff truly suited him best. Both he and that house shared a love for good food and a desire for a peaceful, uneventful life. As for the other three houses, he had no interest in joining them. Though he knew Cassandra Vole would undoubtedly end up in Slytherin, he himself had no desire to go there. He'd only just shaken off any suspicion of being a future Dark Lord. Joining Slytherin would be asking for trouble. As for Ravenclaw, given Xiaji's current abilities, there was no need to compete so fiercely. And Gryffindor, he also wanted no part of it. Though it might disappoint Professor McGonagall, he had a nagging feeling that joining Gryffindor would bring nothing but trouble. Hence, Hufflepuff remained the best choice. At least there he wouldn't be suspected of being a Dark Lord in training. He could lie low there, steadily build his strength, and occasionally use his prophet abilities to tip Professor Dumbledore off. Ideally, he'd even manage to ruin that nose-less monster's plans. Even if, in the end, Xiaji failed to stop him and the monster still returned to life, by then he'd have accumulated enough power to protect himself. As for ensuring the Sorting Hat placed him in Hufflepuff, that posed no difficulty whatsoever for Xiaji, who possessed level max clemency. Sated and content, Xiaji lay back on his bed, lost in idle thoughts, before gradually drifting off to sleep. He didn't know how much time had passed when he felt something warm and wriggly pressing against him. Groggily, he opened his eyes and saw a large fiery red bird standing on his bed. "Are you Fox?" His mind finally cleared. Fox dropped a letter and a folded piece of parchment in front of Xiaji. Xiaji picked up some raw mutton from the table and offered it to Fox. The bird snatched a piece and swallowed it whole. Seemingly pleased with the taste, it grabbed a second piece. Xiaji reached out to stroke Fox's feathers. They were smooth and warm to the touch. He then offered the bird a dish of beef, after which he picked up the letter. It was tied with string and stamped with the highest level of confidentiality. Setting the letter aside, Xiaji unfolded the parchment, from which a tiny key tumbled out. The circular, interlocking script on the parchment initially confused him, but he eventually managed to decipher its contents. After reading it, Xiaji fell silent for a moment. Then he wrote a few lines on the back and handed them to Fox. The bird had already devoured all the meat on the plate. Now it grabbed the letter and vanished in a flash of crimson light. Xiaji sensed that things were taking a turn for the worse. Professor Dumbledore was asking him, on Harry Potter's birthday, to personally deliver the acceptance letter to Harry, accompany him to Diagon Alley to shop, then sneak into Gringotts, retrieve the Philosopher's Stone, and finally bring it to Hogwarts on the day school began. Wait, weren't these all tasks meant for Hagrid? Why was this now falling on me? Moreover, the parchment didn't vaguely mention retrieving an item to give back to Dumbledore. It explicitly stated it was the Philosopher's Stone. It even went on to explain what the stone was, how it turned lead into gold, and how it could brew the elixir of life. Was I supposed to know all this? How could Dumbledore trust me so much? I'm no Hagrid. He really shouldn't be placing such faith in me. Or was Dumbledore testing me? Was he using the actual Philosopher's Stone and Harry Potter as a test? Xiaji stored both the letter and Harry's Gringotts key inside the Ring of Kings, then let out a slow sigh. In the end, he still suspects me of having ties to that noseless monster. Yet he also trusts me deeply. Otherwise, he wouldn't have risked so much. Such contradictory thoughts. If I truly had any connection to that monster, I'd have taken the stone and Harry straight to him to curry favor. Having thought this through, Xiaji lay back down. I already possess a Philosopher's Stone. Why would I even care? Once I hand it over to Dumbledore and safely deliver Harry to Hogwarts, all suspicion will vanish. Then, entering Hufflepuff will ensure no one ever suspects me of being a Dark Lord. Of course, this all assumes the system doesn't mess things up.
Ding.
The system has issued a new quest. TCH, why did I even bring it up in my thoughts? Chapter 39. Make the Savior conform to your will. Ugh, why are you beeping nonstop? Can a person get some sleep? Although the system's rewards had always been quite generous, its missions tended to be rather troublesome.
Beep.
The reward for successfully completing this mission is that the host will randomly obtain a completely new magical system. Moreover, there are no penalties for failure. A new magical system? What exactly is that? Xiaji asked curiously.
Beep.
A new magical system refers to a set of magic that doesn't originally exist in this world. So, I'll randomly gain a magical system from another world? Xiaji quickly grasped the meaning.
Beep. Exactly.
As long as the host completes the mission, they'll receive a random magical system from another world, and all its spells will be at maximum level. Alright, you've definitely piqued my interest. But this is the first time you've revealed the reward before detailing the mission, and such a generous one at that. That means this task must be quite difficult. Xiaji spoke with resignation. Still, he intended to accept it. After all, there were no consequences for failure, and success would significantly boost his power.
Beep.
The system has detected that the host will soon come into contact with Harry Potter, the Savior. Mission objective: the greatest white wizard, or perhaps black wizard, deserves loyal followers. Brainwash the Savior. Turn him into a staunch supporter of yours. Teach him to retaliate in kind, to exact tenfold revenge, make him a ruthless, unforgiving anti-hero. Finally, using him as the core, discreetly assemble a group comparable to the Order of the Phoenix, or even a squad of elite Aurors. Who? Xiaji inhaled sharply. System, if you wanted me dead, just say so. Even without any penalties, failure here would spell my doom. Is it even possible to pull this off right under Dumbledore's nose? And is it really alright to spout such nonsense? Is such deception even necessary?
Beep.
This mission isn't actually that hard. It merely requires the host to shape the savior into your own image. TSH, how can a system speak so lewdly? And isn't this basically asking me to play babysitter? But all I want is to stay low-key.
Beep.
Dumbledore's goal is indeed to act as a caretaker, but the host's duty is to subtly instill your own ideals into the savior and his friends. Then train them to become your enforcers, help them grow stronger. There's a fundamental difference between nurturing someone and acting as a protective caretaker. Xiaji finally understood what the system meant, and an image flashed through his mind. Harry, I can't do it. I truly can't. Face twisted in distress. Xiaji, eyes blazing with fury, slapped Harry across the face and roared. What's that expression? What's that look in your eyes? And those tears? Will your tears defeat the Death Eaters? Will they save the wizarding world? Think of all those who've already died. Don't you feel ashamed? This is a battle we must win at all costs. Stand up. Our training isn't over. Xiaji shivered. That scene seemed wildly off, yet undeniably entertaining. There must be some criteria to determine whether the mission's been completed. How do I know when I've succeeded?
Beep.
At minimum, when faced with enemies, the savior's first instinct should be to cast exploding charms or reducto, not Expelliarmus. Got it. Truthfully, the system made some sense. Against Death Eaters, why use Expelliarmus? They were out to kill. Mercy toward enemies was cruelty toward oneself. Xiaji believed that against such desperate villains, one had to be fiercer, more ruthless. Just like Mrs. Weasley, blasting Bellatrix with a combo of petrification and reducto spells, ending her in an instant. Only then could those Death Eaters never hope to end up in Azkaban. That was the right way. The mission was hard, primarily because it had to unfold under Dumbledore's watchful gaze. Yet it was challenging, and a single misstep could lead to grave misunderstandings. How could it not? Xiaji already had a sketchy reputation, a history of using unforgivable curses. Now, corrupting the savior and forming a clique? He'd undoubtedly be labeled as the Third Dark Lord. But Xiaji had no desire to be a Dark Lord. Sighing, he resolved to give it his all. A plan began forming in his mind. Clearly, attending Hufflepuff was now out of the question. His path toward living a low-profile existence had come to an end. My peaceful days of slacking off. First things first, he needed to dispel any lingering suspicions Dumbledore might have. That part should be easy. All he had to do was return Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone to Dumbledore unharmed. If memory served, on the very day Harry went to withdraw money, Gringotts would be infiltrated by a dark wizard. That wizard was likely Professor Quirrell, currently possessed by Voldemort. Harry Potter's birthday was July 31st, tomorrow in fact. In the original story, Harry's uncle, fed up with Hogwarts letters, had moved to a crumbling seaside cottage. Though Dumbledore's letters had given Xiaji the uncle's address, he wasn't sure whether that plot point still occurred. If it did, he'd have to locate that remote island. Suddenly, a small snowy owl fluttered through the window. Snowball, his own owl, returning from Cassandra Vole with a reply. Seeing Snowball, Xiaji nodded. Yes, he now had a plan. Chapter 40. Open Sesame. Xiaji felt that today had truly been a busy day for him. During the day, he had shopped for school supplies with the Granger family. In the evening, he spent quite some time browsing through various Muggle stores. After returning home, he enjoyed a hot pot meal and then relaxed for a while. It was already quite late now. If tomorrow was July 31st, that meant it was time for him to set off. But that didn't stop Xiaoji from first reading through Cassandra Vol's reply. He filtered out all the subtle complaints about him being heartless, then rephrased any sarcastic remarks into proper statements. Once he'd done that, the general meaning became clear. Little Snowball was adorable. She absolutely loved it, and the name suited her perfectly. She missed Xiaoji dearly and hoped they'd reunite soon aboard the Hogwarts Express. She also hoped he'd keep writing to her. Xiaoji nodded approvingly. As expected of Cassandra, her sarcasm and backhanded remarks were truly impressive, making it quite the challenge to translate them properly. But right now, he had no time to reply to her. Xiaoji made another trip to Diagon Alley and bought a few more items. Then, in a secluded corner where no one could see, he handed a piece of parchment to Little Snowball. "Go on, deliver this to Harry Potter." Little Snowball seemed thrilled. It clearly loved flying around all day. It was an owl brimming with boundless energy. It grabbed the blank parchment in its beak and took off at once. Yet, as it soared through the night sky, an inexplicable fear suddenly gripped its heart. It turned its head and saw a swirling mass of dark mist exuding pure malice trailing right behind it. "Don't panic. It's me. Just keep flying. I'm right behind you." Little Snowball let out a protesting hoot, then continued onward. However, with such a fearsome entity following close at its heels, it no longer flew as joyously as before. It was under considerable mental strain. By following the owl's flight path, Xiaoji would easily locate Harry Potter. They hadn't flown far when a violent storm broke out. Yet, as an obscurus, Xiaoji remained completely unaffected. Their speed remained high, and soon Xiaoji spotted that solitary rocky island out at sea. Seeing the dilapidated wooden shack atop it, he smiled. The Dursleys had indeed brought Harry here. Harry lay on the least uncomfortable part of the floor, curling his body beneath a very thin, tattered blanket. Cold and hungry, he tossed and turned on the ground, unable to sleep due to the raging storm outside. Just as Uncle Vernon had said, no one would brave the rain to deliver him a letter. That thought only worsened his mood. He stared blankly at Dudley's chubby wrist, where a glow-in-the-dark watch sat. In just a few minutes, he'd turn 11. Yet surely no one would remember his birthday. He wondered where the person who wrote to him now was. Why had they been so eager to send him a letter? What exactly did it contain? Why had the Dursleys reacted so strongly upon reading it? His mind overflowed with questions, yet no one was there to provide answers. He wondered if he'd managed to steal a letter when he returned to Privet Drive. 20 seconds remained until his 11th birthday. He silently counted down, planning to wish himself a happy birthday at the end. Perhaps he should wake Dudley up just to annoy him? The clock hands moved slowly. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Harry was about to wish himself a happy birthday. Suddenly, the roar of the storm ceased. Then, he heard a boy's voice from outside the door. "Open sesame." With a thunderous crash, the rickety door shattered into splinters. Uncle Vernon scrambled outside, clutching a rifle in his hands. "Who's there?" "I warn you, I've got a gun." He stared intently at the pitch-black doorway, as though some bloodthirsty beast lurked just beyond it. Harry watched nervously too, utterly clueless as to what was happening. Next, a handsome Chinese boy around his age, dressed impeccably, stepped inside while brushing water off his clothes, his brow furrowed. "Oh, Cassandra's going to kill me. This was a dress she personally picked out for me," he muttered to himself. "Why you?
Who are you?"
This is trespassing. Get out at once." Uncle Vernon's courage surged upon seeing only a boy his age standing before him. Dudley and Aunt Petunia stood side by side, staring at the newcomer in confusion. Xiaoji glanced around the room and sighed inwardly. Well, it seemed his own intimidating presence simply couldn't compare to Hagrid's half-giant stature. In the original story, even adults trembled at Hagrid's arrival. Turning to the timid boy who'd slowly risen to his feet, Xiaoji smiled warmly. "So, you must be Harry Potter?" His gaze lingered briefly on Harry's forehead.
"Kid.
"Are you deaf, or what? I'm talking to you. You clearly need a lesson. Where are your parents?" Uncle Vernon strode forward, intent on hauling Xiaji outside and tossing him away.